Right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Fawn Walker Montgomery, and I am the CEO and co founder with Take Action Advocacy Group, or TAG for short, as we like to call it, because we love to give acronyms to everything. So, just going to go over a brief overview of what TAG is and what we do, just in case this is your first time watching our podcast, or if you're not too familiar with us. So, TAG, like I said, stands for Take Action Advocacy Group, and we are a Black liberation organization. And our purpose is to really help community members and residents who live in their own communities really recognize their voice and understand their true power. Like I always say, we are the answer that we are looking for. So a lot of our work is built into smaller communities where your racism and all your isms are rooted and take place and are generational. There is a lot of Black people and people of color and other marginalized groups in those communities who often feel alone, and that's where we kind of come in. We have chapters where we work with people in these small communities and come up with community action plans, goals that they specifically want to work on. We have a youth chapter and adult chapter. We also have several initiatives that we support. One that we're really focused on this year is environmental justice, and we actually have a Get Out the Lid campaign here in one of the communities we work in, which is McKeesport here in the area we affectionately call the Mon Valley. So TAG was founded here in Allegheny County in the greater Pittsburgh area, but we also do some work in Atlanta as well. So we have our lead campaign here for that. And we're also a part of the environmental justice table. And then we do trainings year round on community organizing, and we have wellness sessions that we do as well. And we do those sessions about every quarter. We just did one, and we're going to be planning to do another one in December. You can sign up on our website, and we do yoga, meditation, sound baths, and healing within our wellness sessions. Where we get to like the other side of liberation, where we focus on the wellness and the healing piece. So that's a little bit about TAG and a little bit about what we do. So you can check out our website, and I'll be sure to have my folks put that in the chat. And today we are going to be having a discussion about the Allegheny County Fair Fairs program. I know now it's called Allegheny Go. They changed these things like 80 times when it comes to these programs. But it's a great program for people here in Allegheny County. So I have today Laura Che Wiens from Pittsburghers Transit and Terrance McGeorge from Allegheny County to come on and talk to us about the Allegheny Go program. So just to give the formal introductions, Laura is the executive director for Pittsburghers for Public Transit. I'm on the board for Pittsburghers for Public Transit, proud board member. I've been with PPT for years now. They engaged me actually when I was an elected official here in McKeesport. So that'll tell you about who they are and what they do. So it's been over 10 years now that I kind of know Laura and been with PPT. And then we have Terrance McGeorge, one of my faves. He's a racial equity fellow and community engagement specialist with the Allegheny County program. Also the co-founder of Project Matters and a community activist as well. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and Laura as well. Thank you.
Of course. So I wanted to have you on to talk about the Allegheny Go program. There are a lot of resources in Allegheny County. I mean, a lot. I mean, some people even will market Allegheny County as like the place to be for resources. And we do have a lot, but sometimes those resources don't get to the people they need to get to. And one main reason is that people just don't know about it, especially people in the Mon Valley. A lot of that is due to transportation issues, information overload as well, I would say, is another big piece to it. But people don't know what they don't know, which is why we wanted to highlight this particular service so we can get the word out more about it. So my first question for the both of you is, what is the history of the program?
I'm happy to start if that's all right, Terrance. So back in 2016, 2017, Pittsburghers for Public Transit was organizing alongside folks in the Mon Valley, Casa San Jose, Thomas Merton Center and Just Harvest, around a lot of different issues with the transit system. There was proposed service cuts in the Mon Valley that were accompanying the downtown to Oakland bus rapid transit line, and they weren't even telling people in the Mon Valley that we're going to suffer really severe cuts, that they were going to happen. At the same time, they were proposing to criminalize fare enforcement. So there was a proposal to have armed police officers check fares on the T and ultimately on the busways too, which we knew was going to lead to immense harm to all riders, but particularly Black and brown riders. So there was a proposal to have armed police officers checking fares, and we knew that was going to cause harm to all riders, particularly to Black and brown riders and youth. And so we were organizing with a lot of individuals in a lot of different communities to stop both of those things from happening. We were successful back in 2017 in stopping those things from happening, but a lot of the community members that were engaged were like, we don't only want to see less harm to our communities, we actually want to see things that improve our lives as well, right? Because service is still not very good in a lot of places. Service and fares were still unaffordable. So not only was there an issue around how they were going to be enforced, but the cost of fares generally are just too much for a lot of people to afford. And so we built a platform that we called our Fair Fares Vision, or our Fair Fares platform, that encompassed everything from fare enforcement to fare costs to ways that we could actually be incentivizing more people to ride, and encouraging, out of town conference participants to be taking our transit system and things like that. And one of the key demands around that was to ensure that, ultimately that we get to a zero fare system altogether. But in the midst, on the way to achieving total fare abolition, we wanted to start with ensuring that low-income people could ride without having fares be a barrier, and that became particularly heightened during the pandemic, right? Because for the very first time at the outset of the pandemic, we had a fare-free system, and what we thought was not possible suddenly became possible for everyone when they closed off the front fare box to ensure that, operators in particular were safe from COVID transmission. We knew a lot of office operators were getting sick and dying from COVID-19. And so they just allowed riders to get on the back of the bus, right? And in so doing, they had a de facto fare-free system-wide. And then 3 months into the pandemic, they, at the drop of a dime, reinstated full fares. And what we saw was this huge number of riders, particularly in low-income communities where there's a lot of overlap with places where there's a lot of SNAP enrollment, like people that are on food stamps or households that have access to food stamps, that suddenly fell off the transit system, right? Ridership dropped on these routes that were correlated with these low-income communities, unsurprisingly. And it was, for us in our community of transit riders and workers at Pittsburghers for Public Transit, really galvanizing and to say, and also appalling, right? Like that our transit system, even though buses were riding half empty, by people's houses that we knew relied on the service, because nobody was joyriding on public transit during the early part of the pandemic, right? These are folks that really, really needed to access all of their critical amenities through public transit, that we had cut off their access on the basis of $2.75 that they couldn't afford to ride, even though we were already going by their houses, right? That we were already investing in this service. And so that really sort of brought to a head this demand for free fares for low-income riders determined by their SNAP eligibility. And we built a report that we put out in September of the year, saying what the benefits would be and how little it would actually cost, and started with the Pittsburgh Food Policy Council and many, many other organizations building an actual coalition around this demand, and calling on other agencies to fund the service too. So the agency was claiming poor, right, as a result of the loss of fare revenue. A lot of funding had sort of collapsed during the pandemic. And so we said, this is an opportunity for all of these other agencies that the county runs to step in and fulfill their missions by ensuring that people have access to public transit. So I know that was a long answer, but I think it might be helpful context for this conversation.
No, it's very helpful. I love how you kind of pointed out, especially as abolitionists, the power of reimagining, because here you are in the pandemic, and we see that it is possible to have, discounted fares program. Like it's possible to happen, and then you've seen the decline in ridership once it went away. So I love how you kind of pointed that out, and thank you for the background and all the work that you all have done to kind of push the program forward. So I know that it kind of went through. Initially, it was a pilot, correct?
Yeah. So from the point that we were part of this big coalition of organizations saying, hey, we know that our members really need to have access to public transit as a right, that the cost of fares shouldn't be inhibiting people from getting healthcare and food and community to be able to connect with their communities and everything else. And we knew from lots and lots of conversations with riders that folks were rationing access to basic needs on the basis of the cost of transit fares, right? They had to decide whether they go to work or they access food, right? Or they go to church or, take care of their grandchild or whatever. So so that coalition was built. We started contacting and really pushing agencies and mobilizing riders to push these different agencies, from the Department of Economic Development to the county health department to the Department of Human Services, to say, these are the ways that this aligns with your central mission. And for such a small amount of money, like, you are providing this freedom of access. And what we later found out was, like, it also provides just an enormous amount of dignity and just like this sense of not having to feel so, like, be turned away at the bus with their children. This shame that comes with folks just not being able to pay to get on the bus. And so we spoke to all these different agencies. He has lots of mobilizations, enlisted all these organizations. And what we won in 2022 was a pilot program that was funded by the Department of Human Services, who, to their credit, the agency's credit, like, was really conscious of how important transportation and the lack of transportation access was to, like, inhibiting a lot of their programs from being successful. In that pilot, 14,000 individuals were enrolled and given either zero fares, half fares, or were part of a control group. So they ran it as kind of like an experiment to see what the difference was and the impact. And of course, overwhelmingly, the impact of zero fares was really profound, right? Like, people's lives changed. They were able to access jobs. And I think even more compelling than the story that we all know about, like, people, can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and access a job, was the stories of people, like, going to the library with their kids or going to parks and recreational activities and stuff, like, and being able to take advantage of so many things that the community, that our communities offer, but that they weren't able to, like, frivolously spend on to like pay for transit to go to these things in the past. And that pilot went for about a year. And then this was a central demand in our organizing around the county executive race, for the county executive to take a position on funding a permanent zero fare program for low-income riders. And the new county executive, Sarah Namarato, was, elevated that as a priority. And as a result, in June or in May of this year, we won a permanent program that was expanded to all SNAP households. And we can talk more about that soon. But I think that our goals right now are really to move that into a zero fare program, which she has continued, to her credit, to say is her goal and her priority in this moment.
Awesome. Thank you for that background. And TAG did some listening sessions, and we'll put our report in the chat. But in those listening sessions, we did them about the food apartheid that exists here in the Mon Valley, and the intersection of transportation came up every listening session. We had people point out the pilot program and say that just because of that pilot program, I was able to not choose between food and medicine and where to get around. So it was very, very, very powerful. So thank you for that background. And then for you, Terrance, if you could explain to people what is the target population for the program, and then how people can apply, and then how you got involved with it.
Okay, so I'll start with how I got involved. So as we talked about earlier, I'm a racial equity fellow, and so I applied to work for the county. I had a friend that let me know that there was like racial equity fellowship that was coming, a 2-year program with the county, and to apply, and I would be a good candidate. So I applied, and I got the job. And so everybody who's in my fellowship created a project around um, just whatever issue that they have with whatever offices within the Department of Human Services. Or and so I have some people in my cohort that are working with drugs and prevention. I have some people who are working with the reporting of children to CYF and how people report and why that is racially biased, and how we should change what that looks like for children and families. Because ultimately, you're criminalizing the poor. You're not really That doesn't make someone a bad mother. That just means that she may not have money to feed her kids or clean her clothes, right? But that's not a crime. That's just circumstance. And so then we have other people who decided that they wanted to work with housing and dealing with the aging population that we have in Pittsburgh, which we know Pittsburgh has one of the oldest populations in the country. And so that's an important work. And I wanted to do community engagement just because I've been doing it for so long. And so they put me with the Allegheny Go program, and I had heard about it. I had friends that were on it. I actually knew about the program. I wasn't informed that much, but I knew something because I was a part of another fellowship program with Urban Kind, and we actually went to a meeting that PBT basically gave us a presentation about it and all the work that you guys were doing. And so I was familiar with your organization, and I actually went out of town with the Human Rights Foundation, and some PBT members were there too. And so I had not an extensive understanding, but I knew about your organization. And so then they asked me to join and do community engagement, and that morphed into collaborating with over, I don't know, about maybe 40 organizations in the city, almost 50 events done since June. And just going to every community event that I can and just signing people up for the program. Um, so with Allegheny Go, to sign up, you need to, it's a two-part process. The first part is you need to go to um, the App Store on your phone and download the Ready to Ride app, which will be the PRT app, and you download that. You put in your email address and all of those things. And then once you get your account set up that way, you go over to Discounted Fares, and the same email address that you use to sign up for the PRT app, you will then use that email address for the Discounted Fares County website. And you put that information in, and then you will probably get an email back within 3 days. And you'll go back to your app, and when you go to purchase tickets, it'll say where, and in the middle, it'll have the 50% off.
Okay. And then how do you qualify for?
Great question. So anyone who receives SNAP benefits 12 to 64 will be eligible for the program. The cool thing about Allegheny Go is that PBT and the advocates have been really instrumental in making sure that this program is comprehensive for a lot of different families and is crucial. For instance, some people who are undocumented may have kids in this country, may be receiving SNAP. One of the criterias, or one of the part of the paperwork, is you don't have to have a social security number. You can just use the SNAP card information to put in there. One of the other great benefits about this program is the whole household gets it. So if one person receives SNAP, within that household, everyone can receive that 50% off discount. And how they would do that is that person would download, everyone in the house would download that PRC app. And when that person goes over to the county website, the Discounted Fares website, they will put everybody in their household that they want on their plan. And then in 3 days, the whole household will have 50% off. and
Okay.
it's not income based as far as the family members. So they could you know, and we know, I'll just say this again, with undocumented families or refugee families, you know, they come as a family. So there's, you know, multiple generations within that household. And so I think that's a great benefit because everyone could benefit from that, right? Um, and so I'm just really excited about doing this work. And we have amazing partnerships. We have partnerships with the food bank in the city, large organizations like the Kingsley Center. We are currently about to start uh, working with the Housing Authority. Well, and we start that work in December, so we'll be starting that work in McKees Rocks. Um, and yeah, we're just hitting the ground running. Like I said, 50 events since June. So yeah.
So, awesome. And is there another way for people to apply? Is it just the app? Can they go online or can they call, or is there other ways, or can they sign up with you at an event?
Absolutely. So I can sign people up at events. We'll be doing that. I can also come to people's organizations and do a training to show them how to sign people up that way. I can send over materials. We have a video that we use within the trainings that I do. I can send that over to organizations and people as well. Um, the goal for me is to make sure that Allegheny Go gets out. I don't really think that a whole lot of people know about the program. And then the people that I do come in contact with in community, they don't think that they're eligible because, oh, well, I do get stamps, but I don't get this much. So a lot of people just have misconceptions of what the program specifically is going to provide. And that 50% is, like Laura had said at the beginning, is permanent. So this isn't something that's going to be here for 6 months and then it disappears. And who's to say that people need SNAP for that long? But either way, they're still going to have that 50% off. One eligibility requirement that I forgot to say is that you do need to be on SNAP for a consistent 3 months. But other than that, yeah.
And then can you explain what SNAP is for some people who
Oh,
don't know
food
what?
stamp benefits. Sorry, SNAP food stamps. That's what it is. And Fawn, you had asked me how can other people apply. So there are QR codes at different bus stops in the city. There are, you can actually go down to Port Authority and you know talk to customer service. You can come to the DHS building and somebody can help you there. So there are other ways if you need to do it in person. Um, so we do tell people that they probably should do the online like you know download the app, download to Ready to Ride app, and then sign up through the Discount Affairs website. That's the easiest way for people to do it, I feel like. But if people are also having issues, they can always reach out to me um or someone at DHS that is dealing with Allegheny Go, Rachel or Ellie, or
Okay.
Paul or me.
Okay.
I
So
do
the
want to.
ways that, oh no, it's 'cause the ways that people can apply. Just want to go over it again. Is the app is the recommended way to download the app. They can go to the DHS office. They can set a appointment up with yourself or any of your colleagues. They can do it at an event. But there's no way for them to call. It would just be to stop at DHS office, or they could stop at PRT as well, right? Customer service.
So there is a phone number that they call. They can call Port Authority's number if they do have questions about it.
Okay.
Now, so I will be honest and upfront about the fact that DHS is specifically taking over this program. And so as far as like the heavy lifting will be done by DHS. And so people should probably start with us first, but they can definitely contact Port Authority and get answers as well.
Okay.
So I want to
Good.
make one clarification. So there is a challenge with this pilot program or this current iteration of the program. So the app is sort of not a non-negotiable right now. So unfortunately, the low income fare program is only paid for through the Ready to Ride app. So you have to download the Ready to Ride app in order to be able to pay for your fares and have access to the half fare. In terms of like signing up for the program, the sign up is actually less challenging, or it can be a barrier for people that don't have internet or aren't technologically proficient. But the website portal on Allegheny for Allegheny Go that's on DHS's website is relatively simple. It's just you input your email address, and then it just sort of verifies that you're on Snap, and then says you're eligible for Allegheny Go. The problem comes in, and why this program has not been as successful since its launch in June, is that it then links up to this phone app, which is actually pretty cumbersome, like really complicated to use, to pay your fares. And that is where we are losing a lot of people, because you have to have data, you have to be, understand how to use this app, which I think for most people, like no matter how competent you are on using smartphones, like I think it's really complicated. And so there's not been as many enrollments, even as in the pilot phase, in this latest round of permanent fares, because in the pilot phase, people had access to discounted fare Connect cards. And that is right now the big push that we have, is to ensure that there is a card-based version of this low-income fare program rolling out at the start of next year. And in fact, that was the commitment that as advocates we sought when this program was announced, that they said, we knew that there was going to have to be a smartphone only enrollment period, because PRT said that they were transitioning to a new card system. They didn't want to order all these new Connect cards in advance of this changeover that they were supposed to be doing at the early part of this next year. But that as soon as that happened, that everybody could have access to cards too, which would make this enrollment a lot easier. Unfortunately, it seems like there's an incredibly long delay on these new cards. And so right now, advocates are really pushing to ensure that that the agencies address the problem and still come out with a card that people can access for this program, while we wait for the other cards that PRT is going to come out with down the road.
Okay. Thank you for that. So they have to apply through the app, and that makes sense as to why Terrance was like, "Come to us first."
They have to, so they don't have to apply through the app. You have to pay through the app. So to actually use the transit system, you have to use the app. But in order to apply for the program, you can do it on any internet thing. And the video that Terry mentioned is really simple to like help walk people through the process of applying for the program. The problem is that people are having a hard time paying for rides using it.
Okay.
Now, I will say that we are currently working on fixing that huge problem that Laura is talking about. And so DHS is really looking to actually start giving out cards. Now, how we do that is where the back and forth goes. But one of the challenges that I have seen and that participants have told me is the app. That they didn't know. Like, I had one lady, I had signed her up at one event, I seen her at another. And she didn't even know she had the discount. I showed her that she had it. I was like, "Oh, girl, it's right here," And so that is something that is difficult. I know that during the pilot, we were able to get 14,000 because DHS had mailed out. People came to get them. People, they were passed out. There were a lot of people working in tandem to get these cards out to people. We just found out that there is going to be this change where we're still going to be using Connect cards for at least the next year. And so now that we know that that change is happening, we're trying to figure out what's the best way to launch the cards back into the community, because ultimately the goal, I think, for PRT as well as DHS and even the advocates is to make sure that people are getting this discount. And so one of my biggest complaints has always been that if we're doing something low income, the app itself for me seems like an oxymoron, because if we're talking about low income people using a phone in itself is something that is attainable, right? Because they do have Medicaid phones, and through Obamacare, they did start doing giving out phones and things like that. But what people don't talk about is the data, right? So you get a certain amount of data when you're on those plans. And if you're using your phone to use the bus to get your discount, if you don't got data, it doesn't work. So it doesn't matter anyway. Like you can show them all day long, but if you don't have the actual data to use the app, what's the point of you having it? And so
Yeah,
that's been a huge challenge. But I do think that now that we are going to have access to cards, we're going to see a spike in a lot of people coming on board and being able to use the program and the platform. And the good thing, like I said, is that we'll be in 41 locations in the next year at the Housing Authority. So I do know that we're going to have a lot of numbers. Now, what that looks like, I can't say, but like I
great.
said, DHS and PRT are going back and forth of how we can get the cards to the community.
Awesome.
I I don't want this to also just be a something that makes people not want to apply for the program. I just want to be clear about the fact that that's what's been one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah,
But I think that if folks are able to navigate the app, like are able to download the app, do it, right? Like don't wait to try to get that discount. And as soon as we're successful in winning the transition to zero fares, it happens like instantaneously on the back end. So you don't have to apply again, right? Once you have the discount, you have it, right? And you have the transition to free fares too.
mhm,
So folks should definitely enroll in the program if you can. And like, there's a lot of ways that we're there, that DHS and Terrance and specifically is helping to support that enrollment. But know also that we understand that there's the access to cards is an important priority. And so we're fighting for that too.
So you have the information. Go and apply for Allegheny Go. If you are receiving SNAP benefits, so SNAP benefits is if you are receiving any food stamp benefits within Pennsylvania. So our particular region that we primarily serve is the greater
Allegheny County.
Pittsburgh, right, is the greater
Anyway,
Pittsburgh area,
mhm.
which is in Allegheny County. So I'm just kind of explaining for viewers who don't live in Allegheny County. So SNAP is the SNAP benefit. So that's what we mean by SNAP household. So typically somebody in your household is receiving food stamps or some kind of assistance from the federal government. So that would make you would have SNAP. So that's what we mean. We keep saying SNAP. PRT is our local transit system here in Allegheny County in the greater Pittsburgh area. It's called PRT. Just so you're not like, look at all these acronyms. We are some acronym people in this county. So that's what PRT stands for. And PPT is Laura's organization's Pittsburghers for Public Transit. So if you live in Allegheny County and you receive SNAP benefits, your whole household doesn't have to just one person in a household, then you qualify for Allegheny Go, which is 50% discount on your transit fare. So take advantage of the program. Presently, you do have to apply through the app. You can also go through DHS. You can reach out to Terrance as well. You can reach out to DPW, but you have to have access to the app. So, since Terrance pointed out earlier, which is very true, we have a lot of elderly people in this county. If you have an elderly person in your family, somebody you're close with, make sure they know about this program. Help them apply, help them get the app, help them work through it, or reach out to Terrance. And we'll make sure in the chat we put the website for Discounted Fares program. We put information for PPT because I know PPT also wants people to reach out to them as well if they're having some barriers. And then we'll put the information for Terrance as well. So any lasting thoughts about this program? But you all please apply for the program. We have a lot of resources in this county, but however, it just always doesn't get out. And I have not heard a lot about this program at all. And it is such a need. People have to be able to get around. Transit is a human right. We say that all the time. We've given examples of people who, when they did use the program, they were able to um, take their kids to the library. They were able to do things that they traditionally wouldn't be able to do. So use the program.
Tom,
Take
one
advantage
of the
of
big
it.
I was going. I'm sorry, not to interrupt. I say one of the things that I always say when I introduce this program to people is that transit is healthcare. It truly
Mhm.
is. It truly impacts where people live, right? what they have access to, where they go, where their kids go to school, who their doctor's office is, where they get their groceries from, where they get their medicine from. And so when we talk about transportation, it is truly healthcare. And I don't think that a ton of people view it that way, but
Yeah.
that's the people who aren't viewing it that way also aren't the same people that have to use it, right? Like I'm someone who uses my car 99.9% of the time to go anywhere and do anything. I barely
Mhm.
walk. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I literally drive everywhere that I need to. But I do remember, I grew up in a low income family, and my mom still doesn't have her license to this day. I actually
Mhm.
had to go to driving school to learn how to drive. I say all that to say is that um, people don't realize who's dependent on the bus is
Yeah.
that it is truly like you said, a human right, but it's also really healthcare. It really just impacts their quality of life.
Mhm.
And so if something as easy as you being able to get a discount and not $50 a month, because I think monthly bus passes are 100, that 50 that you save, literally, I've had participants in the program in the community tell me that they were able to get their kids medicine because they were able to save that $50,
Mhm.
that they were able to add more food because they were able to save that $50, that they were able to pay their phone bill for the month because they were able to save that $50. And that truly is what makes this program so important, because it just impacts people's lives. And so if you know anybody who is serious about the program or could use it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is in the chat too. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
I also just want to flag, Fawn, that if there's a senior person in your life that is not accessing the senior card, which is actually free right now, they should enroll in that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
hopefully they're not encountering the same kind of app barriers that others would.
And they do, if they're going to apply for that senior card, they do have to go down to the PRT building to get that card, and show proof that, they're the age that they say that they are.
Mm.
Or state rep offices.
Our state rep. Okay. You see, there's all these, and I just did a panel, and I was talking about, because somebody was like, "Oh, Allegheny County is the best," and like we have all these great resources, and we do, but it's hard to get help. I was like it's not easy to get help. Like, don't stand up there and act like access is not an issue, because it is an issue. We have these programs, but there's all these red tape and barriers to actually get the actual help. Transportation being number one, because you got to get there. Like you said, you got to go to the building. You got to be able to get there. Like, what about disabled people, elderly people, like people who don't have access to transportation? So just because it's out there doesn't mean that it's accessible. You know?
And then sometimes it begs to differ, is it designed that way?
Mm,
Because of how many barriers you do have to get. I know me specifically, when I apply for food stamps,
hmm.
they it $10 made a difference between whether I got 290 and 50. ten
Yeah.
dollars on my paycheck, right? And so that $10 is I would give them back the $10 if I could, if I knew I was going to be able to get. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's those hard lines that really, I think, keep people in poverty and keep people impoverished. And it's things like Allegheny Go. It's people like Laura and you, Fawn, who do the work that cuts a little bit out of that bureaucracy down, right? When you
Yeah.
advocate for these people, it changes what people have access to. And that's the most important thing I think about this conversation, is that what we're talking about is what it looks like for people to literally just come
Mm,
to the DHS building that day and get their Allegheny Go and be able to just go on about their day, right?
mhm,
Not it being a whole cumbersome type of thing where you need to go to this building or you need to talk to this person. If you could just come into PRT, or you can just come into Allegheny, to the DHS building downtown, the HSB, and just
mhm.
get the service and be able to go on about your business, that is ultimately, I
Yeah.
think, what it would look like for us to be the most equitable, for us to um, really serve the community. But you know, everything isn't perfect, and so we have to work within the parameters of what we have. And you know, I'm somebody, like I said, I will come to your house, I will come to an event, I will come to whatever you got going on and really sign people up, because I truly do believe in this program.
Thank you, thank you. I love the equitable piece. Isn't that what we are supposed to be striving for? So as we kind of close out the conversation, I didn't know, Laura, if there were any transportation advocacy efforts going on now that people should know about. I know we have a lot.
Yes, we got a lot, but I think that probably the most important thing for people to know about right now. So fares are one piece, service is another, right? So I think we're really clear about the fact that over the last 4 years of the pandemic, we've lost 20% of service in Allegheny County. Over the last 20 years, we've lost 40% of service in Allegheny County. So service ain't what it used to be, and it's not good. And we know that the communities that are suffering the most are communities like those in the Mon Valley, and a lot of outlying areas where people have been pushed out from the city of Pittsburgh because of unaffordable housing prices. And right now, Pittsburgh Regional Transit is undergoing what they're calling a bus network redesign, a bus line redesign. So they're like throwing all the spaghetti on the wall, right, of all of the bus routes in the county, and rewriting it in terms of where buses are going to go, what time they're going to run, how frequently they're going to run, who gets served and who doesn't. On a basic level, from our organization's standpoint, it stinks that they are doing what's called a cost neutral redesign. So they're kind of just like saying, this community doesn't, deserve quite as much service, and we're going to give it to this community, right? And this community, we're going to take away this amount of service in the evenings and put it over here, because we know that we're, operating in such an austerity model, right? Where so much has already been taken away that we're pitting communities that really do need more transit against each other for the little bit that we have. So that's a problem. That said, I think it is really, really important for people to look at the proposal. So they've come out with a first draft of what this is going to look like, and it's going to change everything. We know people have been traveling the way that they've been traveling for generations with the existing bus service. And so this is really changing things a lot, and people need to look at the map that's being proposed. If people are having a hard time, which I think is totally understandable, at their website, buslineredesign.com, our Pittsburghers for Public Transit is holding a monthly meeting on November 13th. Is that already passed? November 13th? No. Okay. November 13th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And it is the only time in our history as a 15-year organization that Pittsburgh Regional Transit is actually going to come to our meeting. And we're going to be talking in smaller groups about what's happening to each of the 4 quadrants of the county. So north, west, east, and south. And so folks can really dial in on what's happening with the bus service in their neighborhood, like what hours it's supposed to run and everything else, and raise all the concerns. Also raise all the opportunities that you see, right? If there is a bus line that you've really needed to go to Giant Eagle, and has never been there, like, tell them that, right? Tell them it's our time for the kinds of connections that we deserve. So I'd encourage you to come again, 7 to 8:30 on November 13th is our meeting where we're hosting Pittsburgh Regional Transit to talk about their bus line redesign. But we're going to be doing a lot of organizing in the coming months around this, and particularly calling on them to slow down the process while the Pittsburgh public schools are also being completely, changed up, and there's no answers about which schools are going to be closed and what are the attendance zones. So people have no idea what school their kids are going to be going to. And so we can't have a conversation about transportation at the same time as there's so much uncertainty about where our kids going to be going to school. So those are all things happening, but I think focusing on the service and organizing with us for the kind of service we deserve is really important, as well as the fare.
Laura, where's that event going to be at?
Yeah, so our meeting is going to be on Zoom, and we'll also have Spanish language interpretation and ASL interpretation, as we always do. And so really encourage people to come and ask questions of the Pittsburgh Regional Transit team.
And we'll make sure we put the information in the chat for people to reach out to kind of get involved in the advocacy efforts, or kind of be aware of them. But I want to thank you both. This conversation has been so juicy on an activist level. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. So I appreciate you all for coming on and sharing the information about the program. Allegheny Go, please look it up, please apply. So I just want to thank you and thank you for the work you do as well.
Thank you, Fawn. It means so much to have you share this program with
It
your
does.
audiences and also your ongoing organizing with us for transit. Bus lines as lifelines, as we always know.
Yes, yes, yes,
But
yes.
I just appreciate being able to talk about the program here, and thank you for the platform as well. I do appreciate this.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for coming on, and we'll be sure to put Laura and Terrence's information in the chat so you all can reach out and contact them. So thanks again to our guests for coming on. So I'm going to do my closeout. This is where I typically talk shit, as you can say. But this time we'll take a different approach. So there was an election that, went on. We all know about it. Everyone knows about it. Everyone's heard about it. It brought up a couple things for myself, and I wrote about it in a Courier article. So I do write an article on Black liberation for the Courier, and I wrote on it just talking about voter engagement, and how it's connected to white supremacy. So what I mean by that is really the implementation with the way the masses do voter engagement. So what I mean by that is that voter engagement, there is a lot of money that comes with voter engagement, you all. I mean, a lot. And as a Black liberation activist who does her work at the intersection of Black liberation, social justice, environmental justice, I'm screaming all the time. We have other issues outside of voter engagement. There's the murder of Black trans women. There is issues with Black women. There's Black maternal health. I mean, there's a gambit of things that this money should go to, and not just voter engagement. The amount of money that is thrown at voter engagement is just like water. But you have people dying year round. You have issues that need our attention year round. The way it's also done with nonprofits and the grants, and you have to have a certain number of people. Well, that is also white supremacy. It is called quantity over quality. And I don't care if there's 2 people there or if there's 200 people there. As long as those 2 or those 200 people are fed information. Because our way to liberation is through study and through education and through community. And we cannot do that if we're not actually doing the engagement work. If we do these things to get people out, we have to have those conversations to make it less transactional. So I'm all for having food and gift cards and music, because we do that shit too. It works to get people there, but when you get them there, you have to do that engagement work, and it can't just be during it just can't be during election time. It has to be all year round. The amount of stress and pressure that it puts on to especially Black organizers to get Black people to vote, because every year, right, this is the most important election of our lifetime. As a Black person, I've heard that since I've been 18, since I started voting, and I'm 44. Every year, it's always the most important election. We always have to do. You see, when the Vice President Kamala announced the next day, focus organizing, focus, there's that rush, that urgency. Got to do it now. Got to do it now. So then you rush to get it done now, which is capitalism, because you're just feeding into that, and then you just get tired, and then you don't want to do shit at all. So we have to do this voter engagement work differently. We have to focus more on doing it year round. We have to focus more on engaging people on a deeper level. Our people are not dumb. They understand what is going on. We just have to sit down and talk to our people. Our healing, our liberation is going to be done in community, you all. It's not going to be televised. It's not going to be on social media. It's going to be through us organizing and us talking to one another. So the way that it's done now can become cumbersome. It can become exhausting. People can become not interested. A lot of times in the movement, we get people to come into our movement when things are going on. Election is one of those things. But if we're not honest with them about how the system is designed, then we'll lose them. We'll lose them along the way. They'll come on, they'll get excited, and then we will lose them because we weren't honest with them from the upstart or from the beginning. So the way that we're doing this voter engagement piece now, I feel like it's dangerous. I feel like it's exhausting, especially to Black organizers. Just focus on numbers and getting a certain amount of people there, and getting people signed up, and you gotta get 50 people, or you don't get, like, what the hell is that? That's not community engagement work. That is called stress. So stop doing that. This work should be done year round, and the attention should be given not just to voter engagement. And I think that a lot of that is connected to people pushing the agenda of one of the major two parties. So if you're not careful, and I'll talk a little about this in the courier piece, if you're not careful, you become a pusher of a certain party's agenda, sometimes without even knowing it. You're just out here trying to do this voter engagement work. But along the way, they're funding you and funding you and funding you to kind of push their messaging. So you have to be careful about how you're doing that. That's why it's so important to do this work on a nonpartisan level, and to just give the information out, reminding people to vote, like where they can vote. We talked earlier about all this red tape. There's red tape in voting too. So it's up to us to educate people. This is how you do your mail-in ballot. This is where you go vote. This is what you take with you when you go vote. You can still vote if you're a felon in some states. Like, that's up to us to get that information out. So we have to kind of, I feel like, pull back a little bit on the way some of it is, this voter engagement work is being done now, and really get to that boots on the ground, that door knocking, going to events, talking to people, calling people on the phone, writing a letter. We have to get back to that, because I just feel like the way that it is being done now is not sustainable. People are just getting burnt out. People are getting tired. People are getting irritated. If we just took those funds and gave that attention to all issues year round, I promise you we'd be in a different place. Every time the election season comes around and there's a certain group of people we need to reach, like now it's Black men, that's all I hear about. Chuck, I'll tell you, Black men would have appreciated that before this election. They would appreciate it after the election. That's all I hear now. And I'm like, why? Because it's tied to an election. But what about all year round? We can't just give a damn twice a year, y'all. We can't do that. We're going to keep getting the same shit that we're getting, and we're going to keep feeling that we're picking from a lesser of two evil situation. So we have to do this voter engagement work differently. I had to get that off my chest, because as somebody who's been doing this for over 20 years, it's enough. It's enough. We have to stop doing that. And we're the only ones that can stop it. Like, we are the ones out here doing the work. So if we decide not to do it that way, then it won't get done that way. So we got to look at ourselves, look in the mirror, and figure out why we keep getting back into these same situations. So that is my little spiel about voter engagement. We'll put the link to the article that the column that I have in the Courier, so you all can kind of read just a little bit more about what I mean about voter engagement being tied to white supremacy. So that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we give solidarity to Palestine, Congo, Haiti, Sudan, people who are suffering across the world. We have our own genocides as well going on here in USA as well. But we just show solidarity with Palestine, Congo, Haiti, Sudan, everyone that is suffering in the world. That's what my shirt kind of says today. It says Pittsburgh for Palestine. So thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next time.